The revelation struck the Watchers with the force of a cosmic event. For 20 million years, they had measured the worth of civilizations through their achievements, their technologies, their ability to transcend their origins. They had waited for a species that could match or exceed their own accumulated wisdom and power. But humanity had shown them something far more valuable. They had reminded the Watchers why existence itself was worth preserving. Every species the Watchers had encountered measured success through expansion, technological advancement, or spiritual transcendence. Humanity alone seemed to understand that the journey itself had value, that the experience of being alive was worthy of celebration, even without grand achievements to mark it. As the first meeting drew to a close, Zephyr made a decision that would reshape galactic civilization. "We have been waiting for a species worthy of our knowledge," the ancient being announced. "We believed we sought those who could surpass us in wisdom or power, but you have shown us something we had lost in our eons of observation. You have reminded us that wisdom without joy is empty, and that the greatest achievement is not transcendence, but the ability to find meaning in existence itself." The message that went out across Watcher space that day was unprecedented. Humanity had been recognized not as a species to be studied, but as kindred spirits worthy of adoption into the oldest family in the galaxy. Part 2. When Ancient Wisdom Meets Human Heart. The Homecoming. 3 weeks after first contact, the Pathfinder followed Watcher guide ships to Lumina, the homeworld that had existed since before most stars in the local cluster had formed. As they approached the planet, Captain Chen and her crew pressed against the viewports in wonder. Lumina defied every expectation of what an ancient world should look like. Rather than a sterile technological paradise or a transcendent realm beyond physical matter, Lumina resembled a living artwork. Cities of flowing, organic architecture grew from the landscape like vast flowers, their surfaces shifting between solid matter and pure light depending on the needs of their inhabitants. Gardens stretched between the settlements, filled with plants from countless worlds that the Watchers had preserved over the millennia. Rivers of liquid starlight flowed through valleys that sang with harmonious frequencies, creating music that could be heard across dimensional barriers. "It's beautiful," Dr. Vasquez whispered as they descended toward the primary city. "But it's not just beautiful. It feels alive, like the whole planet is breathing." Zephyr, who had taken permanent physical form for the duration of the human visit, stood beside them on the observation deck. "Lumina has been our home for 15 million years, the ancient being explained. We shaped it not just as a place to exist, but as a place to experience existence. Every element was designed to create harmony, to foster growth, to remind us daily of the beauty that can emerge when consciousness and matter work together." The irony was not lost on Captain Chen. The most ancient species in the galaxy had spent eons creating a world dedicated to the very principles that humanity had stumbled upon naturally. The idea that beauty and joy were not luxuries to be pursued after survival was assured, but fundamental aspects of what made life worth living. The deeper exchange. The formal welcome ceremony took place in the Heart Chamber, a vast crystalline dome at the center of the primary city. Representatives from across Watcher civilization gathered to meet the humans, beings who had chosen different forms of existence over the millennia. Some appeared as pure energy, others as geometric patterns of living mathematics, and still others as beings that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But rather than the formal diplomatic proceedings the humans had expected, the gathering felt more like a family reunion. The Watchers approached with curiosity rather than ceremony, asking questions about human culture with the enthusiasm of children discovering a new game. "Tell us about your concept of chosen family," requested a Watcher who appeared as a constantly shifting mandala of light. "Our observations show that your species forms bonds beyond biological relationships. How does this work?" Lieutenant Commander Park found himself explaining something he had never really thought about in analytical terms. "Well, we do have biological families, but we also choose people to love and care for based on compatibility, shared values, and genuine affection. Sometimes the people we're closest to aren't related to us at all. We call them chosen family because we actively decide to include them in our lives, to care for their well-being, and to share our important moments with them. The concept created visible ripples of excitement through the assembled watchers. For beings who had existed for millions of years, the idea of actively choosing relationships based on affection rather than necessity or biological imperative was revolutionary. Dr. Vasquez elaborated further. In human culture, the phrase "blood is thicker than water" is often misunderstood. The full saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means that bonds we choose to form can be stronger than the ones we're born with. We believe that love chosen freely is more powerful than love demanded by circumstance. Zephyr's form brightened with what the humans were beginning to recognize as the Watcher expression of joy. You speak of building relationships as an active choice, an ongoing creation, rather than a passive acceptance of predetermined bonds. This explains much about your approach to first contact. You chose to see us as potential family rather than as obstacles or opportunities. The test of character. The true measure of humanity's character came during their third day on Lumina. The humans were exploring the archive of lost civilizations, a vast library containing the preserved knowledge of every species the Watchers had encountered over 20 million years. As they studied the records of fallen empires and transcended species, alarms began to resonate through the city's harmonious atmosphere. A Watcher appeared before them in a state of obvious distress, its form flickering between dimensions. "There has been an incident," it announced. "A research station in the Kepler system has suffered a catastrophic failure. The dimensional stabilizers have collapsed, trapping 17 of our researchers in a collapsing pocket universe. Our rescue ships cannot reach them in time." Captain Chen immediately turned to her crew. "Can we help?" The question surprised the Watchers. The Pathfinder was a small exploration vessel with limited capabilities. The rescue would require navigating dangerous dimensional instabilities, and there was a significant chance that any ship attempting the mission would be lost along with those they were trying to save. "You would risk your lives for beings you barely know?" Zephyr asked, its ancient voice carrying undertones of amazement. "That's what family does," Chen replied simply. "You take care of each other, even when it's dangerous." What followed was a rescue mission that showcased humanity's greatest strengths. While the Pathfinder lacked the advanced technology of Watcher vessels, the human crew's creativity and willingness to take calculated risks made the difference. They jury-rigged their ship's systems to create a dimensional anchor, used their communications array as a makeshift beacon, and piloted their vessel through collapsing space-time with the kind of intuitive skill that came from generations of explorers who had learned to adapt and improvise. The rescue succeeded, but barely. The Pathfinder emerged from the dimensional rift with its hull scared and its systems pushed beyond their limits. But all 17 Watcher researchers were safely aboard, along with the human crew who had refused to abandon them. The Declaration. The rescue mission proved to be the final confirmation the Watchers needed. That evening, as the Pathfinder's crew recovered from their ordeal, Zephyr called for a gathering of the Great Council, the collective consciousness of all Watcher civilization. In 20 million years of observation, Zephyr announced to the assembled minds, "We have cataloged the rise and fall of countless species. We have watched civilizations achieve transcendence through conquest, others find peace through isolation, and many destroy themselves in the pursuit of power. We have waited for a species worthy of inheriting our knowledge and our responsibility as guardians of galactic civilization." The harmonious tones that filled the council chamber carried the weight of eons of accumulated wisdom. "But we have been searching for the wrong qualities. We sought those who could match our power, exceed our knowledge, or surpass our achievements. Today, humanity has shown us something far more valuable. They have demonstrated that the greatest wisdom is not the accumulation of knowledge, but the courage to care for others even at personal cost." The declaration that followed resonated across dimensional barriers, reaching every corner of Watcher space. By ancient rite and older custom, we name humanity our successors, our students, and our teachers. Let it be known throughout the galaxy that Earth and all human settlements stand under our protection, and that human wisdom shall guide the younger races as they emerge among the stars. The ripple effect. The arrival of the curious ones. The ancient vigil. In the spiral arms of the Andromeda sector, where starlight danced through cosmic dust and planets orbited in perfect harmony, lived the most ancient beings the galaxy had ever known. The Eternal Watchers had existed for 20 million years, their consciousness spanning eons while younger civilizations rose and fell like waves against an endless shore. They had seen empires that stretched across star systems crumble into dust, witnessed species evolve from primitive hunters to transcendent beings of pure energy, and observed the endless cycle of creation and destruction that defined galactic life. Zephyr, eldest among the Watchers, maintained the vigil from the Observatory of Infinite Sight. The massive crystalline structure floated in the void between dimensions, its surfaces reflecting not light but time itself. Through its faceted walls, Zephyr could observe any corner of the galaxy, watching as species took their first tentative steps into space or made their final desperate struggles for survival. The Watchers had learned long ago not to interfere directly in the affairs of younger races. Their role was to observe, to record, and occasionally to guide those few species that showed true promise toward wisdom rather than destruction. But in all their eons of watching, they had never encountered anything quite like the small vessel that now approached their territory. An unexpected arrival. The human ship Pathfinder emerged from hyperspace with none of the dramatic flair that usually announced the arrival of a new spacefaring species. No massive war fleet bristling with weapons, no desperate refugee convoy fleeing some cosmic catastrophe, no sleek diplomatic vessel attempting to negotiate from a position of strength. Instead, a single modest exploration ship drifted toward the outer markers of Watcher space, broadcasting a message that made Zephyr pause in genuine surprise. The transmission contained mathematical proofs demonstrating the humans understood advanced physics, star charts showing their knowledge of local space, and then something unprecedented. Along with the standard diplomatic protocols, the message included what appeared to be gifts. Digital files containing something called music, visual art that seemed to capture emotional states in color and form, and strangest of all, detailed instructions for preparing various foods along with enthusiastic descriptions of how they tasted and why they brought joy to those who shared them. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Pathfinder, watching her communications officer work frantically to decode the response they had received. The reply had come in perfect English, though somehow conveyed through harmonics that seemed to resonate directly in their minds rather than through their ears. Captain, Lieutenant Torres reported, the translation matrix is having trouble with their response. The language is clear, but there are emotional undertones that our computers can't process. It's like they're speaking with feelings as much as words. The message itself was simple yet profound. Welcome, young dreamers. We are the Eternal Watchers, and in 20 million years of observation, you are the first to approach us with gifts rather than demands. We would know more of your kind. The meeting. The rendezvous took place in neutral space, aboard a Watcher vessel that defied human understanding of physics. The ship seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, its corridors stretching beyond what its external dimensions should have allowed. When Captain Chen and her small diplomatic team materialized aboard the vessel, they found themselves in a chamber that felt like standing inside a living jewel. Zephyr appeared before them as a being of condensed starlight, roughly humanoid in shape, but composed of what looked like captured aurora. The ancient entity radiated a presence that spoke of eons of accumulated wisdom, yet there was something in its manner that suggested genuine curiosity, rather than the cold analysis they had expected. You perplex us, Zephyr said, the words forming directly in their minds, while harmonious tones filled the air around them. In all our observations of emerging civilizations, none have approached first contact as you have. Most species that achieve interstellar capability do so driven by expansion, resource acquisition, or flight from some catastrophe. You came seeking. What did your message call it? Friendship. Captain Chen stepped forward, feeling both the weight of representing her entire species and a strange sense of comfort in the ancient being's presence. We came because we were curious. When our long-range sensors detected your civilization, we weren't thinking about what we could take or what we needed to flee from. We were thinking about what we might learn, what we might share, and who we might meet. The concept seemed to resonate through the chamber in ways that transcended language. Other watchers began to materialize around them, beings of various forms, but all radiating the same ancient wisdom. Yet, as they observed the humans, something shifted in their collective consciousness. "Show us what you mean by sharing," another watcher requested, this one appearing as geometric patterns that shifted through impossible colors. The gift of wonder. What followed was unlike any first contact scenario in galactic history. Instead of formal diplomatic protocols or careful negotiations, the humans simply began to share who they were. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the mission's cultural specialist, activated a portable display and began showing images from Earth. Not the grand achievements of human civilization, not monuments to their technological prowess, but simple moments of human life. Children playing in autumn leaves, their laughter captured in still images that somehow conveyed the sound. An elderly couple sitting on a porch swing, holding hands after 60 years of marriage. Street musicians playing for crowds of strangers who danced together despite having never met. A teacher reading to a group of students, their faces bright with the joy of discovery. "This is why we explore," Dr. Vasquez explained as the images cycled through scenes of human life. "Not to conquer or to escape, but because every new thing we discover adds to the wonder of existence. We believe that joy shared is joy multiplied, and that the universe is vast enough for everyone to find their place in it." The watchers processed this information with growing amazement. In 20 million years of observation, they had cataloged species that achieved transcendence through conquest, others that found peace through isolation, and many that destroyed themselves in the pursuit of power. But they had never encountered a species that seemed to measure success by how much wonder they could experience and share. Lieutenant Commander James Park, the mission's xenobiologist, approached one of the watchers with something that made the ancient being recoil in surprise. It was a small potted plant from Earth, a simple sunflower in a ceramic container decorated with children's handprints. "We brought this for you," Park said simply. "Not because it's valuable or useful, but because we thought you might enjoy watching it grow. It will turn to face whatever light source you provide, and when it blooms, it creates seeds that can make more flowers. We thought that after watching civilizations for so long, you might like to watch something small and beautiful just exist." The gesture struck the watchers like a revelation. Here was a species offering them not technology or resources or strategic advantage, but the simple joy of watching a flower grow. The concept was so alien to their experience that it created ripples of excitement through their collective consciousness. Understanding emerges. Over the following hours, the cultural exchange deepened. The humans shared their music, playing recordings that made the watchers experience something they had almost forgotten: the pleasure of aesthetic beauty for its own sake. They explained their concept of humor, making the ancient beings feel the strange joy of laughter. They described their holidays, celebrations that existed not to mark conquest or survival, but simply to bring communities together in shared happiness. In return, the watchers began to share knowledge that no other species had been deemed worthy to receive. They spoke of the Great Silence, periods when entire sectors of the galaxy would fall quiet as civilizations transcended physical existence. They described the pattern weavers, mysterious entities who had seeded artistic inspiration across countless worlds before vanishing into higher dimensions. But it was during a simple shared meal that the true connection formed. The humans had brought samples of their food synthesizers and prepared a basic meal of pasta, bread, and synthesized vegetables. They invited the watchers to experience physical sensation, something most of the ancient beings had abandoned eons ago in favor of pure consciousness. Zephyr, accepting the invitation, manifested a physical form capable of taste and touch. The first bite of the simple meal created patterns in the ancient consciousness that had been dormant for millions of years. This sensation, Zephyr said wonderingly, we had forgotten that existence could include such contentment. You call this pleasure? Captain Chen smiled, the expression creating ripples of warmth that the watchers could perceive even in their energy forms. We call it being alive. The big moments matter, but so do the small ones. A good meal, a shared laugh, the warmth of sunlight on your face. We've learned that if you can't find joy in the simple things, the complex things lose their meaning. The recognition